clouds and stuff right there. That's the first heaven that the Bible talks about. He said the second heaven is when it gets dark and you see all them stars up there and everything. He said that's the second heaven. He said, so the first heaven, he said the third heaven is where God is. He said first heaven you see by faith, the second heaven you see by night, and the third heaven you see by faith.
Yeah. Amen. Oh, yeah.
I like that. That's what we'll be talking about tonight. Hebrews chapter 11. Most of y'all can probably just start at verse 1 and quote out loud most of this chapter. We call it the Hall of Faith. Because he talks about all these people that live by faith. And tonight, that's actually what we're going to be talking about. I don't really have a 3-point thing tonight. I just have some thoughts.
Good.
I like 3-point things. They help me remember what I preach. That's what remember. And it helps me too when something's going on and I go, oh yeah, I ain't supposed to be doing that. Hebrews chapter 11 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, for by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. We'll talk about that for now. I was going to say, if you could just get a hold of verse 3 tonight, it would be good.
Yeah.
Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God.
Yeah.
He said, let it, and it happened.
Yeah.
That's it. I never have understood how any doctor can be an atheist.
That's right.
When you look at how the human body is put together and how it works, well, I'm not even going to get on evolution. I just think that's just dumb. When you look at the way the human body is put together, if you look at the way this universe was put together, do you know that the earth, if it tilted 1 degree, one way or the other, we would either freeze to death or burn up? Through faith, we understand that the world was framed by the word of God. Just throw this in real quick. I saw something funny that said, imagine an atheist stuck behind a car at a green light, and the bumper sticker says, honk if you love Jesus. I heard a preacher say one time it takes more faith to be an atheist than it does to be a Christian. To believe that all this came from a single cell honey. And then remember, and I didn't write it down, but it says, for by the elders obtained a good report. Now I looked it up, and I do remember this. I don't remember the original language, but I do remember the definition means that they went out and got it. Now get a hold of that, but we take faith as something that you just kind of sit back and it just happens. They said by it, the elders went out and got it. They got what? They got a good report. By what? By faith. The rest of the chapter proves that that's what it's talking about when it says they had a good report. A good report of what? The faith they made. So how do you do that? You do that by doing things that require faith. It's easy to come sit in church. That don't take no faith. That just takes obedience. It doesn't take faith to come sit and I'm glad all of y'all are here, by the way. I don't mean it that way, but see what I mean about don't misunderstand? But really though, it didn't take you any faith to get up and come here tonight and sit here. It just took being obedient to what you think and where you think God wanted you to be tonight. It doesn't take faith to tithe. It takes faith to tithe more than what you're supposed to tithe. It takes faith to tithe when your bank account don't look like you can. That takes faith. It takes faith to There's no money in your pocket. It doesn't, I mean, you get faith by using it. The disciples that walked with Jesus, they had faith. They were walking with Jesus. What did they say? Increase our faith. How do you do that? By doing more things that require faith. It takes faith to keep looking up when the doctor tells you you don't look too good.
Yeah, right.
That takes faith. It don't take no faith to go in there and the doctor say, you're a perfect picture of health. It don't take no faith to walk out smiling in. But when the doctor says, it's not looking good, we're going to have to do some stuff, and you still walk around not worried about it, how many of you know somebody like that? How many of you know people that have been in dire situations, and to look at them and to see their actions, you could tell that they had just put it in God's hands and they wasn't going to worry about it. Everybody around them was panicking. Everybody around them was going, oh, I don't know what we're going to do if we lose them. I don't know what we're going to do if this happens. And if that happens, and they're just sitting there just grinning. The way you obtain a good report is by faith, and that's by acting on the faith that you have and doing things that require faith. And see, if we try to overthink this thing, we'll mess it up. So we'll look at it the way the world looks at it. We'll look at this thing when you go to the doctor and they say, well, we've got to do this and we've got to do that. We'll look at it and go, ain't no way I'm going to make it. The fellow, Charles Kettering, he was the research hand for GM. And he said anytime they had a problem, he'd tell the engineers and stuff, look, we're going to have a meeting, we're going to solve this problem. Leaving the slide rule was out there on that table. He said, because if he didn't, sure enough, somebody in there would get that slide rule out and start working, and they'd say, boss, we can't do that. It don't take no faith to sit back and go, we can't do that. It didn't, you know what? I can say this tonight for Wayne ain't here. And, when he first came here, there was a wall right there. And we only had, what, like half these views. Before that, before Wayne came here, when it was just, y'all, they didn't even have that. I mean, they had here, they had another building and all that. They told me the other week that they started out like a hut. Like Gilligan's Island or something. Yeah. Whatever you said. You know what it took to get to this point? Somebody had to put faith into action. Somebody had to not only say, I believe God can do this, but then act on it. Now, we can, and I believe that's the proof of it too. We can sit there and say all day long, yeah, I believe God can do anything. But then our actions kind of tell on us. I'm going to say that I know we're filming and stuff, and if somebody out there in TV land is watching this and don't like it, you know what drives me up the wall? Christians walking around with their lip poked out like it's the end of the world. Drives me crazy. I know we have problems. I know everybody has problems. But like Wayne says all the time, you're going to have problems regardless. But the last thing a lost person needs to hear when they say, I don't know what I'm going to do about my life, is a Christian sitting there going, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do about mine either. What they need to hear is when I'm saying, well, my faith's in God, I'm not really worried about it.
That's right.
Faith is when all them people say, hey, you can't do that. I wonder how many people, how many lost people would have looked at this place 10 years ago. And if you'd draw paper, everything was going to happen over the next 10 years. I wonder how many of them would look at it and say, you can't do that. If they'd looked at how much money this church had 10 years ago, if they'd said, on paper, they'd say, you can't do that. Then again, I wonder how many church members would have done the same thing. See, faith is when they say you can't do that, and you sitting there knowing God can. That's the substance of things hoped for. Your actions, that's the substance. By what can be seen is the evidence of what you can't see. That's the evidence of faith, is how you act on it. Now we're going to get into how important that is. Verse 4 says, by faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. Don't ask me to explain that. I don't have time to tonight. I just know that he didn't accept Cain's and he accepted Abel's. You know, that's as far as we'll go tonight for that. By faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. So long after Abel was gone, long after he was dead, his faith still speaks. What he did, his works that he did by faith, still speaks. You say, well, how long did that last? I just mentioned it. How long has that been? 6,000 years? Still talking. How many of you know somebody that's been long gone, but every time you talk about them, somebody goes, boy, that was faith. They lived by faith. All of these in this chapter, it's all faith. The only person that I don't mention that it mentions in this chapter that it ain't talking about faith is Cain. The rest of it is all faith. Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Joshua, Rahab, even Rahab. Some of them went by faith. It says by faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death. He was just gone. Just looked up one day and he wasn't there anymore. Abraham, he left out not even knowing where he was going, just knowing that God was leading the way. Some of them stayed by faith. Noah stayed right there building. Just building away. Knowing that God told him it was going to rain. So, our faith is going to be revealed in how we act on it. The evidence of things not seen. It's going to... William Booth, an old-time preacher, said, faith and works should travel side by side, step answer to step, like the legs of men walking. First faith, then works, then faith again, then works again, until you can't tell one from the other. Now, the book of James puts it like this: faith without works is dead. You can't put it any plainer than that. He said, and I'll paraphrase this or I'll get tongue-tied. He said, you show me your faith, I'll show you my faith by works. Now, I'm not talking about salvation. I'm talking about faith. Getting saved by faith and living by faith is two different things. Faith was the only way you got saved, but you got to live by faith too. And it's not work salvation, it's living by faith, it's walking by faith. It's just jumping in by faith. How many of you have ever done that? I mean, not talking spiritual stuff, I mean just anything. How many of you have ever took a job not knowing how it was going to work out? I can prove that you've already lived by faith. How many of you got married thinking, man, I don't know what the world we're going to do? How many of you, when you found out you was having that first kid, said, I don't know what in the world we're going to do? How many of you, after the third kid, went in the mission field and said, I don't know what to do? That's kind of a requirement for mission. That's a joke some of you get. But it's just jumping in and leaving it up to God. That's faith. It's like the little boy that was on the house on fire, and the little boy was on the rooftop, And his daddy was standing on the ground, and his daddy said, "Jump, boy." And the house is burning, and the little boy can't see through the smoke and stuff. He said, "But Daddy, I can't see you." He said, "But I can see you." Yeah, we don't have to see God for God to see us. Just jump in. Habakkuk said, "I want you to." Habakkuk said, "The just," meaning us, saved people. If you want to put it in New Testament terms, saved people. The just shall live by faith. He said, "I want you to write that on a banner so big that somebody running by you can still read it." I ain't going to do like Wayne did when he preached on it that time, when he went running across the hill and see the mouse. But if you were trying to read something, look in here, read something driving down the road, sitting still. Imagine trying to read something running. But he said, "I want you to write it so big, the just shall live by faith, that when they run by that banner, if they're running, they can still read it." That's how important Habakkuk thought it was to get that message out. In today's time, we need to live by faith so big that everybody can see it. Let me find it. I just thought of something else to say. Yeah. Verse, I named off all the people: Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, all the way down to Rahab. It says, in verse 32, it says, "And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and of Barak and Samson and Jephthah and David also and Samuel and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others had trial of cruel mockings and scourgings, yea, moreover, of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and in mountains and in dens and in caves of the earth. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. God having provided some better thing for us, that's us.
Yeah.
God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. Do you know what that means? Now look, I was planning on going this direction, but we're going this direction. Do y'all realize that the rapture will happen when the last Gentile person is saved?
That's right.
That's a prophecy. That's a solid prophecy. When the last person is going to get saved, you say, "Well, wait a minute now, you're talking predestination." I'm not going to try to explain it tonight. I'll just say this. God knows who the last person that's going to get saved is. And that person will make a decision. Free will decision. But do you realize that that has to happen before anything else is completed? So how do we get to that point? By faith. Everybody from now to the time we look up and see Jesus that gets saved will do it by faith. So God started this thing. It said by faith the worlds were framed. So God started this thing and He will wrap it up all by that one word, faith. And again, it's an action word. It's something you act on. And the proof is in the pudding. We can say we got faith all day long, but our lives will show it. Our lives will tell on us, or it'll either be telling or it'll be testimony, one or the other. Is our trust in the Lord evident enough that if we're like Abel, even after we're gone, people will still be talking about our faith?